Hello, welcome back to the Walking Code. Thanks for joining me. In this next video, we're going to learn a little bit about posture and how you can use your core properly to create proper posture and how that is going to allow you to walk correctly. Thank you. Hi, in this section we're going to work on basic posture techniques. All right, our ultimate goal is to get you guys walking, but first we need to start with good posture. If you don't have good posture, you're not going to have a good walk. So there's a few principles that we can look at for good posture, and some of these principles are used in Tai Chi, yoga, all kinds of different movement disciplines. They all come down to the same thing. What we need to do is align our body. We need to keep our spine aligned, we need to keep our pelvis aligned with our hips, we need to keep our knees aligned with our hips and our ankles and our feet. All this keeps the joints so they are situated in a way where they have minimum stress, and when you're walking you have minimum impact. That's going to preserve your joints and your connective tissues for a long, healthy life. So let's start with the top. We begin with lightly floating up of the head. So if we imagine a string tied to a balloon at the crown of our head, floating upwards and expanding, elongating our spine. So if I'm slouched like this, I imagine elongating the spine, elongating the head upwards. As I do this, my chin is going to gently come back. I'll show you this way. My chin is going to, if I'm here, gently come back. I'm not pulling back like that. If I pull back this way, then I'm getting a lot of tension in my neck muscles. You don't want tension if you want good posture. So what we're going to do is lightly float up the head. That's going to align the cervical spine. And then what we want to do is take the shoulders, and we want to keep the shoulders nice and relaxed. So not hunched up. Particularly when we start doing activities, we don't want the shoulders hunching. We want them down where they're functional. Okay, that's relaxed shoulders. Okay, so we've got a floating up of the head. We've got relaxed shoulders. What we want to do with our chest is we want to keep our chest loose. We don't want it tightened. We don't want the shoulders pulling back like this. When we function, when we walk, our movement works in a circular fashion. So we want to think of this circle, and it may be a large circle that I'm moving around here, or in some cases it may be a small circle, but that circle is always in front of my body. You don't want the circle in back of your body. That is not functional posture. A lot of military-like posture has a arching in the back like this. That's not where we function back here. We function in front. So we want to have the chest relaxed. One of the principles of Tai Chi is hollow the chest, round the back. So we want that idea, not hollowed back, rounded chest. So we have floating up of the head, relaxing of the shoulders, hollowing and relaxing the chest, and then we want to keep the abdominal wall engaged but relaxed. A lot of people talk about tightening your core, but your core is what makes you move, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep it tight if we want it moving. It's kind of like throwing a baseball with a tight arm like that. You want your arm relaxed in order to throw. Same thing with your waist. You want the muscles relaxed, but engaged. Engaged means they're functioning, doing what they're supposed to do. That means they're keeping us upright. They're leveling the pelvis, which is our next step. We're going to level the pelvis. Here's our pelvic bone right here. Level means that if you imagine it like a bowl, that it's not tipping either forward or backwards, okay? It's just parallel to the ground. So from a side view, this would be a level pelvis. If I tilt my pelvis forward, this is what we'd call an anterior pelvic tilt. If I tilt my pelvis backwards, that's called a posterior pelvic tilt. What we want to do is not have either one of those. We want to have the pelvis just lined up, okay? So I'm standing, my pelvis is in line. What you should see with a lined up pelvis is a gentle curvature in the lower back. That's called our lumbar lordosis. You don't want that exaggerated like this. A lot of people stand with the pelvis tilted forward. and the lordosis in the back exaggerated. This puts a lot of stress on the lower back, and that can cause pain and injury over the course of a lifetime. So, back to the floating up of the head, relaxing the shoulders, hollowing the chest and rounding the back, relaxing the waist. We should be able to move fluently. And we should tilt the pelvis so it is just in a neutral position. The other thing we want to do is we want to keep our hips and our knees and our feet aligned on top of each other. If you see my knees right now, they're lined up under my hips and right over my ankles. What you don't want to have is any sort of inward energy in your knees, because you see how when I happen, well, you can't see my feet right now, but my knees, if they buckle in, the weight on my feet starts to buckle in. And then what happens is my feet, my arches start to collapse. The knees on the inside, where the weight is centered, they start to collapse, and that's where we get arthritis in the knees. What we want is all that energy lined up. So how I do that is thinking of the hip joints kind of winding out a little bit. So instead of collapsing in, I think of them turning out like that, and that keeps them in the proper alignment. I do that with my hip muscles and with my waist muscles. So now my hips are aligned over my knees are aligned right over my ankles and right over my feet. If we go down to the feet, what you should feel is that your feet are flat on the ground. You don't want to feel your feet either on the inside of the foot, on the outside of the foot. You don't want your weight shifting all the way to the back of the foot and not all the way to the front of the foot. You want your feet level on the ground, and that's both feet at the same time. All right, so that is our basic posture techniques. One of the ways that you can do to check your own posture is find a wall. I don't have a wall here, but you can find a wall and stand up with your heels backed up to the wall, your hips and bottom touching the wall, your shoulders touching the wall, and then when you elongate your head, you should be able to contact the back of your head to the wall. So we're standing like this, and imagine a wall behind me. Everything should be lined up and touching the wall. If I have my head forward and it's not in contact with the wall, we've got a problem. If my pelvis is tipped forward, then you're also going to have your head held forward, even if you're arching your back like this, and now my head is not going to be connected to the wall. So if you practice lining yourself up against a wall, and you can't get everything in contact with the wall, you need to work on the posture a little bit. And you can do that by daily practice until you're able to get lined up. Once you're lined up with good posture, then you will be able to walk more effectively.